We're next going to look at Estonian social security numbers from which we can directly see the birth date and the sex of the person. So the social security number begins with either a 3 or a 4, which in this case is 3 stands for a man and 4 stands for a woman. The next two characters are the birth year, the year of birth of the person, in this case 1980. Then they are followed by the number of the month on which the person was born, in this case November, and followed by the number of the day, in this case 25th of November 1980. The last 4 digits of the social security number don't tell us anything about the location or the date of the birth, so we're going to work with the first ones. We want to at first write out whether this person is a man or a woman. So if it's either one option or the other, we can guess that we're going to be using if function. So let's write down equals if parenthesis begin, and now we want to take from the left side of this the social security number the first character. So we write the text function left parenthesis begin, and it's B17 in which the social security number lies, and as the hint from the lower portion tells us, it's followed by semicolon 1, which is 1 character from the left. And now comes rather an exception, so let me just break away from this formula for a second. We'll be back in here. So usually when we consider text, let's say we write or consider numbers or anything, we write 12 and we take 500% from it, and we write 12 times 500% and we get 60, which is 500% of 12. Then in such a case we will be able to click on Control 1, which will pop up the often used menu, and here we can mark that this number is a percentage, or we can say that it's a number, and if it's a number, it'll just correctly put this 500% and make it into number 5, because taking 500% is as if we had taken 5 wholes of the number. And just to bring a few more examples, if it had been 0.1 and we had turned it into a percentage, it would have been 10%, so it would have worked fine. But now comes a problem. If we're writing this formula left inside an if, Excel inside an if will not be able to automatically understand whether it's a text that is in quotation marks 4 as the first character of the social security number is, or whether it's a number without quotation marks. So what we have to do, if we compare it with number, let's say 3, which is a man, we have to write 3 in quotation marks. This means that we have to memorize this. Some things in computers have to be learned by heart, and this is an example. This number is in quotation marks. Semicolon. And now what to do is, if this if condition pans out, we're gonna write quotation marks man, and the third part of the if was, remembering from the last week, was if it doesn't pan out, quotation marks woman. Of course, this means that whenever this social security number does not contain a 3, let's say that it erroneously contains a 7, which can't be the right first character right now of the social security number, then it's always going to be a woman. So we see some kind of a weakness in our formula, but we have to say that if we take these social security numbers from a correct database where they are all real, there is gonna be no problem with it. Now the second thing is we should also go into more complex case of this if. Namely, number 3 is actually for a man who was born on 20th of century. So there are also people who are born on 19th century, and for 19th century number 1 was a man and 2 was a woman. There are none of these alive aged 111 years or more at the moment in Estonia. So 1 and 2 are in the past, but such social security numbers could come up in some databases anyways. So 3 was a man in 20th century, 4 was a woman in 20th century, and naturally there are also 5, which is a man from 21st century, and 6, which is a woman from 21st century. So these 6 numbers can actually exist. Now our if checks for 3, but it should also, in order to check for all men, it should also check for 1 and 5. So let's make this if more complex. We're going to write, if we have many comparisons or a more complex comparison, we have to use and or. In this case, the formula is going to use or, because we're going to check whether the first number is either 1 or 3 or 5 for a man. So it goes like this, or parenthesis begin, and now we write left b7, sorry, let's write this in the end. We already have the first comparison, and in the end let's write a semicolon and continue. Left b17 semicolon 1 character from the left of b17, and we check whether it equals quotation marks 1 for another man, and semicolon left b17 semicolon 1 character from the left, whether it equals quotation marks 5. And now we see that this all is the condition of the if. It's the more complex one. It consists of an or, and this or consists of 3 comparisons comparing the first character with 1, 3, and 5. It's whether it's 1 or 3 or 5. And here it is. If this pans out, it's a man, otherwise it's a woman. And now we're still assuming that these are correct social security numbers, because if it had been something incorrect, like 8, it wouldn't have checked for a man, and 8 is not an existent social security number, and it still had said woman. So if we want to get rid of even this error, we will have to make it into a more complex formula still. But if we assume that the database gives us only existing numbers, we're okay. Okay, so here it is. All the men and women work correctly.